Now I'm going to talk about the sine and cosine function and what happens to the functions when the amplitude changes. So I'm going to start with our parent function for sine, y equals sine x, and I'm going to draw it quickly. And I'm going to remember that the parent function starts and stops in 2 pi, and all of these are in equal increments, so half of 2 pi is pi, half of pi is pi over 2. That means from 0 to pi over 2 is 1 pi over 2. Then I went another pi over 2, so that's 2 pi over 2. Then I went a third pi over 2, and then 4 pi over 2. Sine starts at the midline, goes high, midline, goes low, and goes back to the midline. So here is my parent function. Now let's suppose I change the amplitude on this. The current amplitude in this problem is 1. Remember, amplitude is the distance from the midline to the max, midline to the minimum. So now, if I'm going to change the amplitude, the change in amplitude is the number that comes right in front of sine. So in our parent function, you don't see a number, so it's understood to be 1. So let's do y equals 4 sine x. Everything else is the same as the parent function except for this number 4. That means my amplitude is now 4. 4 units from the midline, both up and down. So I'm going to just sketch a new graph. Quickly. You'll get used to doing this. Now, I'm just going to make it a little bit tighter here. So right now, this is my parent function. I went as high as 1 and as low as 1. But I'm going to change my amplitude to 4. Now that doesn't mean necessarily always your max is going to be 4 and your minimum is going to be 4. It has to be the distance from the midline. So if this is my midline, the x-axis, I have to count up. 1, 2, 3, 4. My new high is 4 and my new low is -4. Everything else stays the same. Midline, x-axis, and then I count up to my max and I count down to my minimum. All right, let's do one with cosine. Y equals, let's see, 3 cosine x. Again, my parent function is y equals cosine x. The only thing that's changed is that 3. That means my amplitude for this is going to be 3, because cosine works the same as y equals amplitude in front of the cosine times x. So real quick, I'm going to draw my parent function here. Get my key points in. So in my parent function, I start high at 1, midline, low, midline, and max. My amplitude is 1, distance from midline to high and midline to low. I'm changing my amplitude though, so that distance now has to be 3. Alright, so instead of starting at 1, which was my original amplitude, I'm going to start at 3. I have to make sure my distance is 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. And then my low, again, is 3 down from the midline. 1, 2, 3. So what it does is it stretches it out. All right, amplitude. Amplitude, again, is the distance from the midline. It's really important that you remember the definition, as I'm sure you will be asked for it a number of times.